अस्सलाम वालेकुम। प्रोग्राम एम्बेसी रोड में खुश आमदीद। नाज़रीन, आज हमारे मेहमान हैं पाकिस्तान में नेदरलैंड के सफ़ीर जिनका नाम है गाइस शल्तमा, और हम उनसे गुफ्तगू करेंगे पाकिस्तान और नेदरलैंड के ताल्लुकात के हवाले से, और ये देखते हैं कि पाकिस्तान और नेदरलैंड में इस वक्त जो ताउन है वो किस नोयत का है, और मुस्तकबिल में हमारे ये ताल्लुकात या ताउन जो है वो किस नोयत का होगा। इसी पे हम उनसे बात करेंगे। Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us in this show. Pakistan and Netherlands have had diplomatic relations for so many decades. So how do you look at these relations? What are the prospects of furthering these relations, expanding them?
Let me start by saying something that you may not be aware of, but we established our first representation here in the 17th century. In Tata, the Dutch East Indies company had set up a little trading mission. And I consider that trading mission as a kind of predecessor of the embassy, because the focus of the embassy in many ways is on trade. Now, having said that, as you say, we have been here for many decades as an embassy, and we've had a long-standing cooperation with Pakistan in many different fields: water, education, governance, and I think that by and large has been an excellent cooperation.
But Ambassador, you mentioned water, energy and these sectors. Pakistan is facing a lot of trouble on two sectors, the water sector and the energy sector. How can the Netherlands help Pakistan overcome this crisis?
Well, frankly speaking, on water, I don't want to boast, but I think if there's one country that has expertise on water management by necessity, because we are a very low-lying country, it's the Netherlands. And I think that our expertise, our know-how on water management, on irrigation, on drinking water, on port development and related subjects, is something that we really would like to share with Pakistan.
So what do you think, what is the basic problem of Pakistan in the water sector? Is the water being wasted? Is the water being not conserved, or it is not being used according to the modern technologies?
Yes, I think that's one of the major issues. There is a tremendous waste of water, unnecessary waste, both in terms of irrigation and in terms of drinking water. And there is really a great potential in this country to utilize your water resources in a much better way than is
being done now. Yeah. And also on the energy sector, Pakistan is facing a huge crisis in the energy sector. How can Netherlands help Pakistan to overcome its energy crisis?
Well, here I believe you face a very strange situation. On the one hand, you are a country which is blessed with many energy resources: coal, gas, some petrol, and obviously also alternative energy, be it wind and sun energy, or for instance biogas. In biogas, by the way, we have been very active with you in a number of projects supporting the Pakistan industry to use biogas as a means to create energy on a local basis. But even though you have all these energy resources, they're not being utilized the way they should be. And I think part of that problem is that the investors that really would like to invest in energy resources here in Pakistan are not always finding the market conditions as good as they would like them to be.
Yeah, and the energy from water sector, the hydropower, Pakistan has a great potential to produce its energy from water sources, from hydropower. What is lacking here, in your opinion?
Well, I think, as you say, you have a great potential here. Of course, in hydropower, hydroenergy, dams, you always have to make a balance between ecological requirements, requirements of the local population on the one hand, and the requirements for hydroenergy on the other hand. And that is here also a delicate balance. So any project should be accompanied by very sound studies in this respect. But yes, your potential is great. You have your mountains, you have your elevations, you have your possibilities there, and I believe that World Bank and others are involved in that.
Your country is an agriculture country. You are producing a lot of agriculture products, and Pakistan can help. Pakistan can share your experience, because your agriculture is more advanced and technologically it is more advanced than ours. So can you share some experiences in the agriculture sector with Pakistan?
I'm sure we can. I mean, again, we are a very small country. We have only about 16 million people, but we are the second world exporter in agriculture. The second exporter in the world. And that's because of the level of our agricultural production and the know-how. Take dairy industry. Milk and cheese is very well known from the Netherlands. It should be very well known from Pakistan. You are the third producer of milk in Pakistan, but only 4 or 5% maximum is being processed. Now we can help there. We can really help and invest into your dairy industry, and we would like to find venues to do that.
What is lacking in this dairy industry in Pakistan? As you said that we are a huge producer of milk and we have a lot of cattle around, but what do we lack here?
I think 3 things: basic know-how often, quality control and storage. I think if those 3 elements are being properly addressed, then you have a huge potential also for export of milk and milk products.
But the way we are breeding our cattle, do we need a system or an organization in that also? Because there doesn't seem to be a very well organized breeding of cattle so that it can be used on commercial scale.
Yes, I think though I have visited a number of dairy farms, and I think there is a progress going on there. You see also local investors, Pakistani investors, who are now investing in the dairy industry and bringing in high quality cattle for milk production and also sometimes for meat production. By the way, we are still, from the Netherlands and from Europe, suffering from an import ban from cattle, but I understand that this government is very actively working on removing that ban. You need to create access to quality, and cattle is just one example, so that you can bring that in and that you can use it for your own production.
But do you think that the quality of the cattle that are here available here in Pakistan is of the international standard, or we need to do something to bring better breeds of cattle?
Frankly speaking, I think there is improvement possible. But I think at the same time, as I said before, you can see already some investors, local Pakistani investors, who realize that. They know that there is a world to be gained in improving the quality of cattle, and so I'm quite hopeful that you're moving in the right direction here.
In other fields, like, we are producing wheat and we are producing cotton and rice and others, how can you help us increase our product or production in these fields?
Well, what I would like to see is a cooperation between our agricultural university of Wageningen, which is really one of the top universities in the world in agriculture, and your agricultural
at Faisalabad.
And all the academic world surrounding agriculture in Pakistan, because an exchange of know-how really lies at the basis of progress.
So is there a possibility that the Faisalabad Agriculture University and your Agriculture University, they kind of start a partnership and start a program under which a very high quality education is imparted to our students who want to go into the agriculture field?
Well, I'm very supportive of that, and I'm trying to sell this concept to my colleagues back in Holland. Of course, you have to realize that a university is an independent body, and therefore we as a government cannot dictate to them with whom they should collaborate. But I think one thing we can do, and what we're already doing, is sending fellows with fellowships to the Netherlands
from
Pakistan in that field, for instance, to learn what's happening in Holland. But out of that comes cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. We'll लेते हैं और ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम पाकिस्तान में नेदरलैंड के सफीर से मजीद गुफ्तगू करेंगे कि ज़राअत के शोबे में हम इनसे किस तरह की मदद जो है हासिल कर सकते हैं। वेलकम बैक नाज़रीन, हमारी गुफ्तगू हो रही है पाकिस्तान में नेदरलैंड के सफीर से और वो हमें बता रहे हैं कि पाकिस्तान और नेदरलैंड के दरमियान ज़राअत के शोबे में किस तरह का ताउन जो है उसके इम्कानात मौजूद हैं। Ambassador, your country is very well known for growing tulips, and you export huge amount of tulips to other countries of the world. Can Pakistan also grow tulips?
Well, you grew tulips long before we did. Because if you go out in the mountains here, in the beautiful Himalaya, you will find wild tulips.
Wild, yeah.
Yes. And the wild tulip was at the basis of the cultivated tulip that we brought in from Turkey and basically from this part of the world. So yes, of course you can grow tulips, maybe not as well in Sindh as in, let's say, the foothills of the Himalaya, but definitely yes.
What can we do? I mean, what kind of training you wish to or you would like to impart to our farmers and tell them how to grow tulip and how to benefit from it? If wild tulip can grow in this area, then we can do it on organized basis.
Yes, it's a question again of exchanging experiences, but we've had already some Dutch horticultural investors here who set up small investments in that field, and I think there's plenty of room for growth there. You will see that Holland is actually too small a country for the agriculture or for the horticultural ambitions that we have, and many horticulturists go outside of Holland to invest, including potentially here in Pakistan.
So, Ambassador, what would you like to do in your tenure as Ambassador to expand the relations between Pakistan and the Netherlands? What is the roadmap that you have in your mind?
Well, my biggest ambition really would be twofold. On the one hand, I would like to leave this country, when I'm going to leave this country, being able to say that I made even a very small contribution to regional stability, because I think that is really the quintessential aspect of Pakistan, first of all. Secondly, I hope that when I leave in maybe 2 years' time, I will have contributed to a strong increase of our trade relations, because that is really an area where there is a lot of growth possible.
So coming back to your first benchmark, which is creating stability in this region, how would you like to do that? Pakistan and India, for instance, they are at loggerheads with each other. And Kashmir is a dispute between the two countries. Can you play a role to reconcile between the positions of Pakistan and India and stabilize peace in this region?
Again, let's come back to what you mentioned before, water management. We are a country that has a lot of expertise there. Now, many of the issues between India and Pakistan have to do with water. And what I would like us to be able to do is play the role of an honest broker, supporting both sides on a technical way, not on a political way, on a technical way in assessing what are the needs, what needs to be done, how can we bring both parties together to share the waters that are available.
Have you studied the Indus Basin Treaty, that is the agreement between India and Pakistan, and which lays the basis for sharing water of the rivers that start from Kashmir? So is this treaty needs some improvement, some amendments, or it's all right?
Now that is a very difficult question for me to answer, because really I did see the treaty, but study is a different thing, and I don't think that I'm in a position to make. It has to do with the very rapid change of the demographics in some parts of Europe, and the lack of integration of some people who migrated from other parts. But I just came back from Holland 2 days ago, and my feeling is that Islamophobia is actually getting less and less. And I think that people are realizing that it just takes time for newcomers to integrate and to become a part of society as a whole. But you can see, for instance, in Holland, extremely bright young Moroccans or Turks or other people who are making their contribution to society. So I think that we are already beyond that stage, personally.
Right. But do you think that this problem originated from the behavior of some Muslims living in those parts of the world, in European countries, who were kind of aberration rather than being an integral part of those societies?
No, I don't think you can put the guilt on one side or the other. I don't think it's actually interesting to talk about guilt. I think what's interesting is really to see how can we together try to solve these type of issues, this mistrust between different groups in the population, and integrate them better. And it's difficult. It's difficult in Pakistan, where you have the same problem,
sectarian issues,
sectarian in a way, and it's difficult in the Netherlands.
But there is an attempt, global attempt, to bring about a reconciliation or a religious harmony, so that this misgivings and misunderstanding is removed and the world becomes a stable, peaceful, yes. And these tensions just fade out.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's really a question of tolerance, of accepting the fact that somebody else is different from you, accepting the fact that he has a different belief, a different skin, or a different language, or whatever makes him different, but that does not make him less than you are. And that is really at the very essence all over the world.
Thank you, Ambassador. We'll take another break. नाज़रीन, एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक लेते हैं और ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम मज़ीद गुफ्तगू करेंगे कि यूरोप में जो इस्लाम के मुखालिफ जज्बात हैं, उनमें एम्बेसडर साहब कह रहे हैं कमी आ रही है, मज़ीद इन जज्बात को ठंडा करने के लिए क्या हो सकता है? वेलकम बैक। नाज़रीन, हमारे साथ हैं आज पाकिस्तान में नीदरलैंड के सफ़ीर, और वो बात कर रहे हैं कि दुनिया से दहशतगर्दी और इंतहा पसंदी को कैसे ख़त्म किया जा सकता है और यूरोप में जो इंतहा पसंदी है उस पर काबू कैसे पाया जा सकता है। Ambassador, what role Netherlands can play with regard to bringing down the anti-Islamic sentiments in that country?
I think what we have to do is basically, as European countries also, make clear to our own population that we are a tolerant and open society, that that our dynamism in society comes out of the diversity of society. And I think it's very important that both in education and in the media we stress that those elements, and I think that's the best way really to support that.
Hague is known to be an international capital, legal capital, and a lot of international tribunals and international court is housed there. So how do the people look at Hague, the people from your country, whether they are doing justice to the world or the disputes are being resolved and you are contributing towards making the world a better place to live?
Well, you're asking to a lawyer from The Hague, so the answer that I'm going to give to you is maybe a bit obvious. But yes, we are the legal capital of the world. We have most of the legal institutions, the International Court of Justice, the International Court of Arbitration, the International Criminal Court, the Yugoslavia Court, and some other courts in The Hague. And that has a reason. It has a reason because I think I can say that the Netherlands is being seen as an objective country.
Or neutral country.
A neutral country that creates a good, fertile
environment.
condition or environment for justice. And we have also a number of institutes which are related to the institutions that I mentioned before, which help to create that legal environment. But in the end of the day, it's the parties to a conflict that have to come to terms to the conflict. It's not just the court that can solve a conflict. There must be a willingness from both parties to contribute to the resolve of the conflict.
So you have some legal experts available in Hague who can be engaged by the parties who go to these courts and tribunals?
Yes, including what we mentioned earlier, India, Pakistan. And we have the expertise available, and we are more than happy to share that with you.
And Hague is exclusively meant for this, or Hague has other aspects of life, it's just a capital, legal capital, international legal capital, or it has a social life as well?
Well, it has a social life. It has also the government of the Netherlands. At least it had the government of the Netherlands.
Till yesterday.
Till yesterday, because the government has resigned yesterday. But it is the seat of the government of the Netherlands. Yes.
You mentioned the collapse of government in your country. What is the reason why it happened?
It happened because we are, like most European countries, facing incredible austerity measures. And we have had a very prolonged discussion within the government and with parties outside of the government, but which were supporting the government in Parliament on what measures to take. But unfortunately, in the end of the day, the consensus that was achieved apparently over the weekend fell apart, and therefore the government decided that they would lose the majority in Parliament, and that therefore new elections were called upon.
Do you think that the coalition governments have survived in Netherlands, or they have collapsed very frequently, and you need a more stable democratic system there?
No, I think if you look by and large, the Dutch coalition governments have been quite stable. One or two were not, but on the whole we've had, for instance, we had a prime minister over the last 9 years, the same prime minister, with, yes, different governments, but in the same coalition, basically. I'm not considering Holland a non-stable country in that respect.
Politically and democratically, it is very stable.
It's relatively stable. It's, of course, if you have a political system where you have many different parties, it's more difficult to form a government than if you have the Anglo-Saxon system where you have basically only two parties. So it's black or white.
It's not like that.
No, we have many shades of grey.
Right. So because generally it is said that two-party system ensures a stable democratic dispensation, but a multi-party system actually creates instability in democracy. Do you agree to that?
No, I don't. I think, as I said, shades of grey are important in society. Life is not black or white. I personally like the fact that you have 4 or 5 different parties that each represent a segment of society or a way of thinking, and that you can choose between so many different ones, that your choice as a voter is not limited only to black or to white.
What is your view of Pakistan's democracy? We have had military dictatorships here for the last, almost 32 years. we had military dictators, and now we have democracy, which is very fragile. How do you look at the future of democracy in Pakistan?
Well, I think it's a very good, a very encouraging sign that you've had now a government for such a long period. I think it's unique in your own history, and it shows the way, it shows the direction to go to. I think it's important for Pakistan itself, it's important for foreign investors, it's important for regional stability to have a government that you know is going to be there until the next elections.
Ambassador, in the earlier part of your conversation, you mentioned that one of your objective is to expand commercial and trade relations between Pakistan and the Netherlands. How do you want to go about that? What is your strategy?
Well, our strategy is, apart from a number of financial instruments that we have available, our strategy is based on talking to the Dutch business community, telling them what the opportunities are here in Pakistan, where they really should focus upon, where they should put their energy, and identify together with Pakistani counterparts what is the potential for Dutch commercial cooperation. And we mentioned water, we mentioned agriculture, and there are a couple of other subjects there.
What do you suggest to them? I mean, being the ambassador of the Netherlands, what do you suggest to them? Which sector they should invest in? Energy, power sector, or agriculture, water, or any other sector?
I think water is a very important sector. Agriculture and food production is at least as important and a very good sector to invest in Pakistan. I think port development, for instance, in Pasni and in Karachi, are sectors where we have know-how, where I would like to see Dutch investors. Energy, yes, but energy is a very difficult and very sensitive area, obviously, for many reasons. But we have a number of big Dutch firms present in the energy sector in Pakistan, including Shell, of course, which is Anglo-Dutch, as you know. So I think there are a number of areas in which we could do much.
The foreign investors, Ambassador, are reluctant to invest in Pakistan because of the fact that they think that this country has been hit by extremism and terrorism. It's not stable. The law and order situation is a big deterrent to foreign investment. Are you convincing your own investors, Netherlands investors, to come and invest in Pakistan?
Yes, I am actually. I believe that there is potential for investors to come down here, even though sometimes it's hard to convince somebody when you read in a newspaper that violence in Karachi is increasing. I think you have to give a very qualified advice to Dutch investors, and that's what I'm doing.
थैंक यू एम्बेसडर। नाज़रीन, आज हमारे साथ थे पाकिस्तान में नीदरलैंड के सफ़ीर मोहतरम गाइस शलिमा, और हमारे साथ गुफ्तगू की है पाकिस्तान और नीदरलैंड के ताल्लुकात के हवाले से, एक्सट्रीमिज़म और इंतहा पसंदी और दहशतगर्दी के हवाले से, और पाकिस्तान और नीदरलैंड के दरमियान किस तरह हम ताल्लुकात को बेहतर बना सकते हैं, और वो कौन से फील्ड्स हैं, वो कौन से शोबे हैं जहां नीदरलैंड जो है वो पाकिस्तान की मदद कर सकता है। उन्होंने कहा कि ज़राअत एक ऐसा शोबा है जिसमें, और पानी की जो मैनेजमेंट है उस शोबे में, और एग्रीकल्चर की तालीम के शोबे में नीदरलैंड पाकिस्तान की बड़ी हद तक मदद कर सकता है। इसी के साथ ये प्रोग्राम खत्म होता है। जावेद सिद्दीक को इजाज़त दीजिए। खुदा हाफिज़। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
थैंक यू वेरी मच।